a few things here, and yes, we are. So welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you again for joining us in joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. You know, all of our sessions are really aimed to provide you relevant information and tools, topics to support you, set you up for success. And we do those through 4 primary themes. Today's session is really kind of focused and related to virtual leadership through Agile project management, but you'll see other topics through our series that focus on how to work better remotely, navigating a transition, and even personal health and well-being. And we at Corporate College and Tri-C are very committed to serving you during this time. It's a time of constant and rapid change. And the way we want to support you is providing you resources that help you and your teams not only succeed, but thrive today. You know, something that you can implement right away. And that's regardless of wherever you may be working, whether you're back into the office workspace or you are still working remotely. One of our newest resources, besides the webinars, is our program through the State of Ohio's Tech Cred program. On May 28th, Lieutenant Governor John Husted announced that this new program is accepting applications from employers in Ohio through June 30th. And Corporate College is really proud to be an authorized training partner with the state of Ohio. You know, so essentially, Tech Cred provides Ohio employers funding for their employees to earn technology-based credentials, such as Agile project management as a great example. I'll have more information upon the conclusion of today's program, so please stay tuned. Or if you're interested, I'm going to put in the chat box now. I'll type in there information so you can email me. I ask if you could put in the subject line, send me tech cred info, and I'll make sure to get back to you. Hopefully, if not by the end of today, first thing in the morning, but I should get back to you today. It's a wonderful program, and we hope everybody's able to take advantage of that. So speaking of Agile project management, what a great tool and program that is. Besides that type of content, we have fantastic facilitators and presenters. And if you've been to any of our other series, you already know and understand that. So I'm so thrilled to really welcome back our Agile facilitation specialist and subject matter expert, Andre Bryan. Andre is a senior consultant and facilitator with Corporate College. He specializes in management consulting, operational excellence, business transformation, technical training in a global supply chain management program, logistics, technology, and supplier capacity building in manufacturing and construction, technology industries, you name it. And Andre not only is a subject matter expert, but with over 25 years of successful professional experiences, he really personally understands the process challenges and flexibility of applying and integrating these methods into the workplace. That experience is from a number of industries, but especially, and I just want to personally express my thanks for his years as a decorated combat officer in the United States Marine Corps, and recently his participation on the U.S. Congressional Roundtable briefings before the U.S. Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Wow, that's a lot of responsibility, Andre. So with that, I'm very pleased to turn the presentation over to you, Andre. Thank you again for being here this afternoon.
Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate it. And I am so excited about being here again. If you guys recall, many of you, I understand, came back for a second time. So I guess I wasn't, I guess I may have been a little entertaining and pretty informational the last time, because I see a number of people came back, which is great. But if you recall, if you were in attendance at the last session I did on Agile, it was really about how to increase productivity in the workplace by using Agile. And if you recall, I started out my presentation last time talking about this problem in American industry, business, within our organizations, where we are actually at 1970s level of productivity within the workplace. Believe it or not, with all the technology that we've got, what I emphasized last time is that because of our inability sometimes to apply the technology in the workplace, that our productivity has actually suffered because of that, and we haven't grown beyond that 1970s level of productivity. Well, picking up on that similar theme, what we'd like to talk about today is this problem that we continue to face, which is there's gaps that's keeping us from achieving what we want within our organizations. Our projects are oftentimes failing. We aren't meeting our schedule. Our customers aren't happy with the requirements, whether they be internal or external customers. They're not happy with what we're delivering. Our employees may be disengaged for whatever reason in their work. And all of these problems continue to increase that productivity gap. But the good news, as I shared last time, is that there's a solution, right? There's a solution to all of this in the workplace. A lot of organizations are emerging and doing extremely well in this time of change. And they're leveraging different types of project management skills. They're leveraging Agile. They're leveraging a number of tools and techniques that's not only helping them overcome the challenges of meeting schedules, being on budget, having engaged employees, being very productive. They are exceeding expectations in this time of change. And that's what we want to talk about today. When there are problems on your projects, could Agile possibly be a solution to overcome those? So how do we use Agile to overcome traditional project management problems or waterfall problems? Let's get started. Oh, my slide didn't advance here.
Sometimes it gets a little temperamental. If you want to click on the presentation, it should advance, or you can use your arrows, Andre.
Okay.
There we go.
Did it advance?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
I saw your cursor moving over. Don't you love it?
I just love technology. Exactly. Just love it when it works, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, how was that? Okay, great.
Perfect.
So we're back on track. So sorry about that, but using Agile to solve traditional project problems. So what I'm going to cover today in our brief time together is a few things. One, I want to make sure that we understand what Agile actually is. A lot of people have this misnomer or misunderstanding of Agile and how is it actually applied. And if I'm not an IT department, or if I'm not an IT company or a startup, what is this thing Agile, and can it really help me in my work? Well, we're going to talk about that briefly. And then if I'm using traditional project management, where I've got a number of processes, we've got this project management plan, we've got people that are designated and assigned different roles and responsibilities. If that's not working well, can Agile come in and help actually support and fix those problems? Let's talk about that a little, and I'll share some experiences there. And then there's 4 reasons that Gartner, Standish, and a lot of these other organizations say that there's really 4 high-level problems as to why projects fail. One of them is lack of users' input. That user could be a customer, any stakeholder, it could be an internal or external person, but usually their lack of input into what we're doing or producing for them causes our projects to fail. Also, the requirements. What's expected? What do we need to get done? Sometimes those are incomplete or not very well stated. The requirements changes, right? We know right now, amidst this COVID and all of the different things that's going on, our workplace has not looked like this before ever, and it's evolving almost every day. Leaders are challenged with how to stay on top of the daily, sometimes, changes that's going on in the workplace. And that creates problems on our projects. Well, can Agile actually come and address those problems? And then lastly, but not least, is unfortunately our employees, our staffs, our teams aren't fully engaged in the process because they lack some of the skills that's required in order to deliver on the projects. So let's start out by understanding what Agile is. First of all, Agile's not a silver bullet. And I say that to people all the time because I don't want this misnomer that an organization or your organization needs to scrap everything that you're doing, drop all of your projects, totally change everything, and quickly jump into Agile. That's not realistic, and it's a costly proposition. So Agile's not a silver bullet. However, if applied properly, it can solve a number of different problems and those gaps that I talked about earlier in productivity. I want us to think of Agile and Waterfall being traditional project management, as two different styles. And both styles have a lot of different flavors, right? I talk with my students and clients sometimes of, think of the old Baskin Robbins commercial, 31 flavors. There's so many different versions and combinations. What the organization should do and what we help organizations do is try to find the one that fits best for them. So think of Waterfall and Agile as two different styles, both with different flavors. I could be Scrum, Kanban, Lean, XP, a number of different versions of Agile. It's also a matter of taking the traditional project management, which is more plan driven, and then layering Agile on top as a potential solution. So that way they complement each other as opposed to being competitive. And this is, I hear all the time, something like, Agile is so much better than Waterfall, or Waterfall, we like that better than Agile, or we don't understand it. It's like saying a car is better than a boat, right? Two different purposes, two different intentions. And I want to just eliminate that misnomer of there's one better than the other. Again, a lot of it is situational based. And we'll talk about how Agile can actually slowly be integrated into your organization and how it can ultimately improve some of your existing projects. Now, quickly, don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but what is traditional project management? It's called Waterfall, but traditional project management is nothing more than probably the way that 75, 80, 90% of our organizations have run for years, which is we have a problem that we need to solve. We create a project around it. It's linear. We initiate the process. We go through a long planning phase. We try to figure out what we're going to deliver, what the product is going to be, what the service is going to be. Then we start working the plan. We work the plan over and over. There's predecessor tasks, right? There's things that have to be done before we can move on to something else. We've got dependencies, and then we go to the critical path method, and then we look at all these different things, and then we try to close out the project, and on and on and on. So work is always done in Waterfall sequentially. Okay. Now, what happens is if there's a change in the middle of that process, or heaven forbid, something like COVID-19 comes up in the middle of our project, or the customer changes their mind, or there's external factors, global issues that impact the way that we do. Now our project really becomes in dismay, and it becomes challenging to keep that project within that plan, within the budget, and within the cost. And that becomes a problem the project team has to deal with. Now we move into things like change orders, renegotiate with the customer, try to eliminate scope creep. Everyone wants to be a stakeholder at that point. And as soon as we figure out what the solution is to that problem within our project, guess what? Something changes again. And now we have another problem on the project that we have to deal with. So it becomes really challenging in Waterfall to keep up with that. Waterfall, though, is one of the easiest methods of project management. It's fairly easy to look at these different project phases and deliverables, but we've got this challenge of dependencies. Works well for small projects. Now, small, large projects, that's all relative, depending on in your world, $1 billion projects could be considered large or small if you're talking about, shipbuilding or some big military project. So relatively speaking, the smaller projects are traditionally been pretty good for Waterfall. The processes in traditional project management are easily and well documented, and there's a lot of documentation. There's change orders, there's plans for the plans. There's a lot of meetings that happens typically in a Waterfall methodology. And if you've got to manage a lot of dependencies, then Waterfall works fairly well. Now, there's a number of downsides in Waterfall. And this may resonate with some of us that's been working in this manner of projects for some time. But the larger and the more complex the project is, from construction projects to IT, app development projects to whether I'm building a nuclear reactor, when the projects get more complex and you have to have more people involved, more project teams, multiple stakeholders, lots of dependencies, schedules, and staying within budget and maintaining the quality of the original plan and the expectation from the original plan becomes more difficult in a waterfall project. So basically, the larger it gets, a lot of times, the more challenging it is. It's more challenging for the organization to coordinate. In addition to that, in waterfall, if the requirements aren't clear up front, I mean, ironclad spelled out, then there's some challenges. And once you move down the path of true waterfall project management, when changes come up, it takes sometimes a lot of work to go back and address those changes. So you're talking change orders, you're talking documentation. If you're a functional organization where you've got layers of approval, you may require 6 or 7 different people to approve a change before you can actually move forward. And then that oftentimes leads to rework. And I would say rework is like the old Superman. It's like kryptonite to a project, right? Whenever you have to rework something, it really slows things down. It typically impacts the quality as well as the budget. And then lastly, but not least, is that when you find a problem on a project in waterfall and you're further down the path, fixing those problems like bugs in any type of app or changing a plan or design and any type of error is a lot more difficult to do in waterfall. So these are the traditional project problems that we deal with. And now our question is, can these types of problems be overcome by something called Agile? Okay. So if waterfall is failing, is Agile actually the answer? And we're going to take our first poll. It's going to be a quick one. We'll give you about a minute or so to answer these questions on the poll. So Jerry's gone over the instructions. Jerry, I'll turn it back over to you to conduct our poll.
Okay, great. Yes, thanks, Andre. So everyone, go ahead and look at the icon. It should be in the shape of a megaphone is probably the best way to describe it. And it should be just above, but to the right of the word chat on your chat box. So if you can locate that, Andre has asked you, we're just on the first question right now. So is the project and work environment uncertain? Go ahead and click on that megaphone icon and go ahead and select either the check mark for yes or the red X for no. And so we'll wait for those for people to respond there.
And Jerry, if I could jump in, it's is your particular work environment right now where all this risk is going on? Think about your work and what you're doing now and your projects in your work environment. And uncertainty really is all about risk. Is there a lot of risk?
Sure. So far, we have 3 people who voted yes, 1 no. I think hoping everyone can locate that icon. So we're waiting for more. The yeses are really outweighing the no's here, Andre. They're pouring. They're coming in now. Here we go. All right. So I think the yays have it.
Okay. Number 2.
So go ahead. You should be able to, when you click on that megaphone again, click on the word clear. That'll clear your response. And we'll go on to the next question. All right. Thanks. Go ahead, Andre. Next question.
Yep. Next question. Is it challenging to achieve predictability over the cost and schedule of a predetermined project plan? So you have a project plan in your current work environment, and is it difficult to predict whether or not you're going to hit your costs and your budget requirements? And is it predictable that you're going to complete that project on time? Can you predict that you will meet the budget as well as the schedule?
You know, typically, I don't think people typically do well with, that crystal ball, right? What do you predict in the future? But this is a really
Yeah,
This is
it
a really
is.
good question. And I
It
think
is.
overwhelmingly, again, uh, definitely overwhelming by the responses coming in. It's definitely yes, Andre.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And that is challenging. It's very difficult. Like you said, Jerry, I like that crystal ball analogy. It's really hard to forecast and look into the future and say, I think we're going to hit our budget when we do this, right when
Right.
we're starting. Are we ready for number three?
Yes, go right ahead.
Right. Question number three, if you guys will clear and get ready to respond to this one. Are your customers, or is the customer, again, whether it's an internal customer that you're doing the project for within your organization or external, but is the customer disappointed oftentimes in the quality of the product or the service you're delivering? Uh, this one's kind of challenging because oftentimes we don't know. The customer doesn't express to us whether or not they're disappointed. They just accept what we deliver. But
Mhm.
yes or no, is the customer disappointed often in the quality of the product or service?
So a little bit more mixed this time.
Okay.
But the nays or the no's are actually outweighing the yeses, Andre, by
Excellent.
2 to 1.
Good. Good. Excellent. Number four.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Employee satisfaction, is that challenged, and is employee satisfaction declining within the workspace? Now, I know because of COVID, people are working remotely, so it's kind of a little bit difficult to answer that question. But typically speaking, on your projects, is employee satisfaction declining because they're less engaged and they may not be given the opportunity to take accountability or responsibility for their work? In other words, are they feeling more or less empowered in the workplace and working on projects?
Oh, wow, Andre, this one's running almost neck and neck here.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard to tell a winner because it keeps going back and forth. But I'd say at this moment, right now, the no's are edging out the yeses by just a very slim margin.
Margin. Okay.
Mhm. About half and half, though.
Half and half. Okay. Good. And
Okay.
should we move to the last one?
Yep. Go right ahead.
Okay. Great. Last question, guys. If you guys would answer this one, is organizational synergy hampered by silos and a diminishing spirit of trust and partnership around goals? In other words, is the projects and the work that you guys are doing, does silos and lack of communication and people working independently and not cross-functionally, is that creating a challenge within the organization around trust, impacting the culture? Yes or no? Silos, unfortunately, uh, impact our ability to be able to deliver on projects. So are you operating in a silo within your organization?
Okay. And that one, Andre, people started responding to that one very quickly. I don't even think you finished the question and people are already responding. And overwhelmingly, it's yes. Overwhelmingly. A few no's, but overwhelmingly yes.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you all for participating. Very interesting and not unusual. So those answers aren't unusual from what we see. My partner and I, Brian, we work on a large number of projects where we are addressing from not just a training and educational point of view, but with organizational structure and aligning in portfolio management, that strategy and trying to break down those silos and make sure that employees are much more engaged. So the reason that happens often is because in Waterfall, it doesn't always open up the opportunity to collaborate like we're going to see in Agile. Okay. So now, what is this thing called Agile? Last session I did, I kind of covered it at a really high level, just to talk about how you can introduce it into the workplace to improve productivity. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper this time around. Agile, can it make a difference? What is it? It's really continuous iteration. It's a philosophy, first of all, project management, where you're continuously iterating your process. You're working in smaller increments of work. So your work is broken down into smaller batches, and you're constantly iterating, developing, testing, iterating, developing, testing, on and on. There's more innovation and creativity because you're not working from a strict plan. Remember, in Waterfall, we had to initiate the plan, we had to develop the plan, then we work the plan. And we didn't stray from the plan. Otherwise, we would have changes and some challenges. Well, in Agile, one of the things that we're looking at is how do we end up delivering value to a customer and not be so beholden to a plan where there can be innovation, there can be creativity, and there's not a command and control element. So Agile allows us to do that. It also allows for more communication, better communication, not just between the project team, but all the stakeholders as it relates to the project. Agile kind of opens the door to this trust, transparency, honesty, and just in the nature of it itself, it actually allows for the team to collaborate better and to share those ideas, to be innovative, and to kind of take responsibility and accountability for the work that they do. Why? Because my last point, the teams are self-organized. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're self-organized, we're self-governed, we're self-directed. We know the work that needs to be done. And without that command and control of a functional organization, having to go through the assistant VP, the director, the assistant director, the manager, the assistant manager, in order to get the resources we need or to get the work done, we can kind of direct that to make sure that we're doing one major thing, which is driving value to the customer. Who are we delivering this project to? We want to continuously drive value to them. Now, it's focused on the client and it's continuously involved. I talked about this iteration and incremental work, etc. So it continuously evolves. The teams are extremely motivated and extremely engaged. Work in several organizations where as you transition to Agile and people start to see the power of being empowered, they've been able to leverage that, and that's where you see the creativity and all of those start to come to bear. Where in Agile, it promotes less hand holding and less hand slapping if you're not doing the corporate way. It allows people to be more engaged in their work. Okay, and it also ensures that the quality of the product that you're developing. Again, remember, it's not just software. We're seeing it in every aspect of the business, but because it's iterative, because it's incremental, because the customer is involved a lot more, and stakeholders are involved, and there are some customization to the method, you drastically reduce the risk. Now, remember, one of our poll questions talked about uncertainty around cost and budget. In Agile, we can manage those uncertainties a lot better than we can in Waterfall, okay? And we can address some of those risk problems. Andre, that all sounds good. You know, it's a yeah, but, okay? It sounds great, Andre, but is it really better for my organization? And there's a few things. That's a question that you would have to answer. Do I want to bring Agile and layer it like that sandwich, like that burger? Do I want to bring it in and possibly layer it over the work that we're doing now to fix the consistent problems that we're having? And that was evident in the poll questions. Well, questions that you should ask yourself. If your organization is very siloed or functional, you have to say, can my culture relinquish that power at the top, that top-down power, to allow people to truly be empowered in their work, right? So in the traditional waterfall method, the project manager is everything, has all the authority, all the power, and a truly projectized organization. So we have to say, can our organization relax that and share that project manager role among a team, okay? And if we move faster to market, which means that we have shorter startup times in our projects and we incrementally deliver to the customer, can our organization tolerate that, right? What that really means is that I'm stepping away from all these standardized procedures and all these rules and governance that we have stated. And a lot of times those aren't even in writing, right? Those are just the way that we do things. Interesting, oftentimes I'll work with organizations with some challenges, and I'll ask people, why are they taking all these steps, or why are they doing all these things? And they're like, oh, that's just the way we do it here. Okay, and why? If it's not adding to productivity, we've just always done it that way. And why have you always done it that way? It's just the way we do things here. And we end up in this vicious loop of really never getting to why those processes are in place. Well, Agile may be able to break down those types of routines, uncover those bottlenecks, and actually start to resolve a lot of the problems, right? And in addition, you've got to ask yourself, is the workforce willing and able to be a little bit more self-organized, right? So when they're doing some part of the project and they hit diminishing returns, meaning that the work that they're doing is not bringing value to the project, are they disciplined, and are you allowing them to pivot and start to work on a different part of the project that's bringing agile, that's bringing a whole lot of agile ability? And then lastly, is the staff prepared to take on that responsibility and the accountability? Can they accept feedback from the customer, and can they interact well with the customer? Here's an exercise, and I'm just going to ask you to do this on your own. But it's think about everything that I just talked about and determine, is your organization itself ready for Agile, right? So is your organization really ready to bring in Agile, layer it on top of Waterfall, or start to transition away from Waterfall for some of the benefits that I'm going to talk about later with respect to Agile, okay? So if you would just draw a circle or create your own pie chart and break it into 3 sections, right? Is your organization, based on my descriptions, truly agile, meaning happy customers, teams are great, everything else? Or is it fragile instead of agile, where you've got, you're oftentimes over schedule, over budget, workers aren't extremely happy about the work that they're producing, and then, or are you in a situation where none of your projects seem to be clicking and you're not achieving your goals and your objectives, okay? So do that on your own and determine where you are. Now, increasing agility, one of the things that I would encourage us to do is not to force fit, right, our projects to a methodology, but look at our projects and determine how something like Agile and which version of Agile could actually fit into the project. So I've already mentioned that if we increase agility, we become more adaptive. We can address problems quicker. We can deliver on time within our budget. The more agile we become. However, our goal is not to take Agile and fit it into a project, but let's take the project and look at applying the Agile skills, okay? Now, again, I want to dismantle this myth of let's throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? It's not the way that we want to go. So it's not that easy to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We all know that, right? So I've read, I think it was a 2017 Standish group report that said, you know, Agile succeeds 3 times more than Waterfall. And the report also says Agile process is the universal remedy for all Waterfall project problems, right? And project failure. And you have to ask yourself, well, how did they actually define success? How did they compare one project to another, knowing that projects have different outcomes, their reason for being are different? So how can you say that? And then also, when you talk about a universal remedy, Agile's not a one-size-fits-all, okay? So I'm always skeptical when I hear for anything to bring something in that totally replaces something else, and it's the silver bullet. And remember, I started out by saying none of these methodologies are necessarily the silver bullet. However, there is one in Agile that actually can make lots of improvements in the way that we're actually doing our work and may overcome a lot of challenges. Now, where do we start, right? Remember, I said that there's some traditional project failures, and we want to understand how could we possibly use Agile to fix those. Leaders have come up, and this was a study done by Deloitte, working with a lot of leaders and looking at the old rules, meaning the traditional waterfall method and the way that we do projects versus the way we possibly want to move towards. If we're going to start to make a transformation in the way that we do projects in the organization, some of the old rules and the way that we do work has to change, right? We've got to make the atmosphere of the organization one that's conducive for the things that Agile brings in order to bring the benefits, right? So we can't force a square peg into a round hole. We've got to actually take that round hole and start to square it a little so our peg can fit. And there's a few things in the old rules that I'd like to point out really quickly. One is I go further down here because again, we're talking about leadership in this instance. And historically, in a lot of organizations, when you're running multiple projects, project managers promoted, et cetera, and people become leaders through promotion, right? And in many organizations, I've done my time, it's time to get promoted. Whether or not I'm very good at helping the organization do what it's supposed to do doesn't matter. I've done my time, it's time for me to get promoted. Or I completed a project, great, and I got a good 360 evaluation, I'm moving up, right? In the new rule, in the new organization, people create followers and supporters, right? So they grow in influence, they grow in authority based on their ability to be accountable for the work and lead Agile teams. Also, leading by direction, that command and control is part of that round hole that our square peg just won't fit in. But as we start to make the organization more agile, then we start to orchestrate. We lead by being a good conductor. So if I'm a great conductor, I'm having people come into the band at their respective time. I'm having people play the flute, play the horn, play the drums at their respective time, that when I orchestrate them all together, we're succeeding and we make a beautiful sound, which means that we are actually completing our project on time. And most important, we're delivering value to the customer. And that is one of the new ways of looking at whether or not I'm delivering leadership or I'm acting as a leader within the organization. Now, some other benefits of taking Agile and layering it on top of the way we traditionally do projects is Agile is really, really, really good at addressing failure points on projects and helping us avoid landmines, right? So you can use Agile, as I mentioned earlier, you can minimize a lot of risk. Agile is very good because of the nature of delivering an Agile project, is very good at eliminating or reducing uncertainty. So those known unknowns that happen on every project, there are known unknowns, Agile can address those. There's also unknown unknowns. There's things that we don't even know about that may come up on the project that creates a change. Agile is better than Waterfall in being able to address those issues, right? And what we want to do is we want to really use Agile to address cohesiveness and building stronger teams. For failures, there's 4 areas that that experts have studied that said this is the reason why many of our projects fail. And I'm just going to cover those 4 areas. A lot of them are not new to you. You understand that these occur and we all experience it. A lot of times they are actually inherent in just the nature of Waterfall. So some of these project failures are inherent in the nature of Waterfall, and Agile was designed to help us overcome those. All right. So one of the failure points is that we don't get enough engagement with the customer. Again, the customer could be internal or the customer could be external, right? What happens when we're really not constant contact with those that we're actually creating this project or this product for? Remember, we engage in a project to solve some type of problem, to launch something new, to address some type of regulation that we're required. There's some reason why we're engaging in this unique endeavor. But we should be constantly engaging the stakeholders that play a role and play a part in that, right? And sometimes in our waterfall, once we've got our plan, it's historically not been a part of our delivery process, not to the extent of Agile. So to address that problem, that waterfall problem with Agile, what the team does is spend quite a bit of time listening to the voice of the customer, okay? So the Agile team, through a role of a product owner, really understands what that customer requirement is, really understand not only the what needs to be developed, but also the why. So the Agile team will really understand, why are we truly doing this, right? So there's so many times within our project teams, people are just working, 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 working. And if you ask the big picture of what their part of the project is and the impact it's going to have, they have no idea, right? They're doing work because it's been assigned to them, but they don't see the big picture. They don't understand how the user is going to get value of the project and the work that they're doing. If it's a nonprofit world and I'm developing a new program, the constituents or the people that's going to benefit or use this program, how are they going to use it? What does it really mean to them? Typically, we're not getting that voice of the customer to that degree in our traditional projects, where Agile changes that. Also in Agile, we address this failure point by not just making sure that the customers are fully engaged in the process as much as possible, but we really understand what the value is that they're looking at from our work. And we're constantly looking for that. And if they ask for a change, we welcome it. Okay. Now, the result of using Agile and those types of waterfall problems is that we end up with better project performance. We improve the quality of what we're going to do. Communications with the stakeholders are usually better. And remember that question I had is, how predictable can you make your estimates as far as schedule and cost? And most people say, it's real hard to predict. I don't have that crystal ball. Well, one of the results that we get with that constant customer stakeholder and input is we can overcome some of that challenge of not communicating and being able to estimate with that crystal ball. Second one is that we have incomplete requirements, right? We understand what the customer wants, but they're not complete. Well, in an Agile world, the whole process around what we do and the entire methodology is spent getting user stories and working through user stories in order to break down and truly understand what the requirements are for the customer, even if they change, right? So even if the requirements change, we want to make sure that we're able to address it. That's a problem in traditional waterfall, right? Customer, says, hey, I want to go blue instead of brown. Now it's an entire process we have to go through in order to make that adjustment. Change orders, bill the customer more, take a hit, all these kind of things. When we use Agile, what we do is we get better elicitation of the customer's requirements, as well as their acceptance criteria for the work. Okay. The third one is that the requirements change. I talked about this a little bit earlier, right? So I like this thing here I put in Flash. The customer is at the stoplight and get a great idea, right? And they give me a call and say, instead of wanting it in blue, I want it in brown now, right? They're taking a shower in the morning before they get to the office and have a eureka moment, and they want to change something. Traditionally, in Waterfall, it's like that kryptonite. I'm like, oh my God, there's a change. What are we going to do? But in Agile, the way it's designed, good changes can be identified. I can work with my customer to identify a good change that will constantly improve what they're looking to do. Why? Because I'm helping my customer, again, whether it's internal or external, I'm helping them improve what they want, and I'm helping them be more competitive, right? So if I'm doing it for an external customer and they're going to use what I deliver for some other reason, I'm helping in their ability to be more competitive. The results of using Agile and those types of waterfall problems is negative effects are minimized, and then my customer is always happier with the final results. Okay. And then the last problem is that our teams just aren't skilled enough in order to be able to deliver on the promise of the project. So shortage of skill sets and people lacking the ability to deliver on a project. In Waterfall, we are accustomed to someone being understanding their role and maybe being a generalist and being able to multitask. Well, Agile teams are committed, right? They're committed and they are T-shaped. The people on the team are T-shaped, right? I think most of us understand that. They have the people on our Agile team have a breadth of knowledge, but they also have a depth of expertise in a particular area. So generalists as well as specialists, but what they specialize in, they are extremely, extremely, extremely good at. Okay, so Agile also allows for cross development and learning. So as we're working through the project, the team is developing their skills, they're cross learning from each other. And when we scale Agile, we've got large amounts of teams, small teams working in small increments and small batches of work, but they're sharing knowledge constantly, right? So we're developing the skill sets of our team. Now, what happens when the organization commits to development of people through training programs, et cetera? The people in the organization become more engaged. They get more excited about their work. They get more committed to their work, and their productivity levels go up. Okay. So one of the benefits of addressing waterfall problems with Agile is you can improve the skill sets of your team. Your team learns new skills and they better collaborate with each other. Once we've gone through all of this and we've addressed those four problems, possibly using Agile to fix those waterfall failures, we want to measure whether or not it was successful, right? So in an Agile world, we look through four lenses. Is my productivity improving? Is my customer feeling that I'm delivering value earlier, faster, and more value? And I'm doing it the right time. I'm doing it right the first time, right? So I'm not going back and reworking, but the first time I deliver something to the customer, is it valuable? And if we make changes, can I actually bring them value quickly? Also, quality. I want to measure if I'm bringing in Agile, am I improving my quality, right? So is the customer's quality standards. Remember, we're bringing value to the customer. Unfortunately, in a waterfall world, we often look at our own internal quality and we spend more time focusing on our processes and not what quality we're bringing to the customer, right? Quick example, working on supplying something to an organization that they needed in order to set me up as a vendor or a supplier within their organization. It took 36 days to get through their paperwork process. They consider that a project. However, most of the time in that project wasn't spent on supporting me as the customer. That 36 days was spent working on their process. So their internal process of documenting and completing the paperwork is their project. Whereas me, the customer, was not really considered in the equation. I was just the reason for them doing the project, but all of the focus and emphasis within their teams and the people they had to hand off this paperwork to was all centered around their internal processes and the quality of whether or not they were documenting. Certain files had to be in place in a electronic file before they can move on and do something else. And then also, once we bring Agile in, is it sustainable, right? Can we continue doing this type of work for the long run and continuously improve? Is one of the other lenses we want to mention. Now, as I start to wrap up, let's talk briefly about what Agile has done. And this comes from the Standish report. Deloitte has also done a very similar report, but take a look at our traditional projects on the left, right? So if we use Waterfall historically, more than half of our projects are challenged, right? And that's never going to change. But our success rate is what we're looking for. We're always going to have changes and challenges and problems and impediments, obstacles we have to overcome in our projects. But our goal is to say, can we use a methodology or a philosophy? Maybe it's a hybrid approach, but our goal is to make sure that we reduce our failure rate and overcome the challenges that we know are going to always be there. They're never going away because businesses and organizations are so dynamic, right? So in traditional projects, you notice that our failure rate is 21%, and it's primarily in those four categories, some version of those four categories that I covered. But when we take Agile and we start to look at similar type of Agile projects, right? Similar size, similar scope, similar nature, similar customer, same industry, et cetera. Look at how our success rate goes up. This is for a 4-year period from 14 to 18, 42% as opposed to 26%. Organizations are transforming themselves using Agile, right? So Agile organizations have a 37% faster revenue growth. Now, I want you to not only think about this as an organization that's selling stuff, right? Think about it also organizations that's doing services and their profits or their revenues increase if they can just reduce their costs, right? So they grow 37% faster in their ability because of their ability to reduce cost, overhead, and the amount of money and time that it takes them to deliver projects. Okay, so it's not just the revenue generating, but if I can also cut my costs and my overhead and recognize 37% faster revenue growth. Last point, quick poll that we're going to take, and then I'm going to turn it to Jerry for the last 5 minutes to cover the new program that we're just so excited about with the state. Jerry, would you like to lead this one, or should I just get it started?
No, go ahead and get it started. I'm just going to ask everyone, based on what Andre has presented here in this particular poll, if you would go ahead in your chat box and then respond to the number, the appropriate number related to that particular stage. So go ahead, Andre, go ahead and explain the various different, 6 different stages you have here.
Excellent. Thanks, Jerry. And if you guys would go to that box and respond as I run through this really quickly. So based on my explanation of traditional waterfall project management and some of the challenges we have and how Agile can address those challenges, especially in those 4 key areas, I want you to think about your own environment, your own organization, and could Agile possibly come in and address some of the challenges that you're having? And remember, I said you've got to take that square peg and create that round hole into a square hole. So think about your organization and say, is your organization ready to move towards Agile and actually transform itself into this way of doing projects? If you are, then you are a number 1, right? It's great. There's no impediments. We're ready to do it, or we have been doing it, and we're doing a very good job at it. 2, there's some impediments, but my teams aren't impacted by those impediments, and we're doing Agile, or we're moving towards Agile. Everything's great. 3, rate yourself for 3 if there's some impediments and the team progress is impacted, but you're getting better at it. Okay, you're moving into a direction where customers are involved. You're doing better. Number 4, rate yourself a 4 if there's some impediments and the team is stagnant. You're not really growing the team. You're not delivering more projects on time and within budget. You see that, things are kind of sliding downward. Rate yourself a 5 if you've got significant impediments. If there's so many problems and challenges that are impacting and it's heading downhill, rate yourself a 5 to say that there's significant impediments in our organization and it doesn't allow for us to actually transform to doing this methodology, right? And then last but not least, number 6, if you are totally in a situation where there's no way your organization is ready to move away from some of the project challenges in those 4 areas of failure, rate yourself a number 6. And with that said,
We have some results coming in.
Great.
Yeah, because looking at it right now, it's trending, Andre, where you have 50% of the respondents saying they're at a number 4. So they're right in there. And then honestly, the other half is actually evenly split. We've got 25% at a 6, unfortunately, and 20, and then on 25% at the level 3. So still struggling a little, but
struggling, yeah. And how many 1s do we have?
We don't have any 1s. I'm so sad. But
yeah, it could be challenging, especially at these times. Yeah. The last point, and I'd like to turn it over to Jerry, is that I've got a lot of questions on the last time I did one of these about how do we actually look at becoming Agile, and the college is a great place to go. Come to Tri-C Corporate College. There's everything from all things Agile breakfast where you can get more information. There's all types of certifications. There's team-based things. So, sign up, and the college would also offer a complimentary Agile assessment for your organization as well. So Jerry, if you'd like to go into the tech cred to wrap us up, that'd be great.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Andre. And first of all, let me just say on, behalf of my entire team here at Corporate College, Samantha, me, Rafaela, Jody, the whole team, we want to say thank you so much for being here. And I know everybody on this particular session really appreciates you being here today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, to talk a little bit more about the Tech Cred program, the state of Ohio has really recognized the role and the high demand now for technology-based professionals. And so in order to support employers, just at the end of May, they announced this particular program. Tech Cred is for employers who are looking to skill up their current workforce or people that they're going to be hiring in technology-based but credentialed programs. They will reimburse employers for up to $2,000 per technology-based credential per employee. So an employee may even earn 1 or 2 credentials. And then there's a cap on that for the employer up to 30,000. So if you're interested in learning about more information, how your organization can participate, please feel free to give me a call or an email. I have my email, I just posted it in the chat. That way I can get out more information to you and explain it, because it is important that to submit an application, even if you're not 100% sure, but have the companies submit the applications by the end of this month, by June 30th. That is very, very important. I don't know that it's going to be extended. So take advantage of it now. Training for those individuals is required to be completed within the following 18 months. So you do have some time. So that's very helpful. And we're very excited because Agile project management is really one of these highly sought after and eligible technology-based credential programs. So again, I also put in the chat, please take a look at the link to tedcredohio.gov for more details there. But again, I'm happy to talk to people, and I know Andre is very excited and would be happy to join in on a call with me and really answer any other specific questions you have about the various different certification levels. And we have others on our team too. So with that, I know we're here at the top of the hour. I want to thank everyone for being participating in today's session. Thank you again, Andre. And just as a reminder, everyone, as you go out to the Corporate College free webinar series page in the next few days, you'll be able to find this presentation, Andre's presentation, recorded and out there for you to rewatch and share. You'll also have a copy of his PowerPoint presentation that you'll be able to download for yourself. So thank you again, and please stay up to date with us by also following us on social media. Take care, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Thank you, Andre.
Bye.
Bye-bye.